My rent renewal letter came last month. The number was circled, higher than last year again, and I caught myself picturing something dumb. A black box AI somewhere, quietly nudging every landlord on my block to raise their price in lockstep. A dealer running the table, and nobody's hand actually on the cards. So here's the question I actually want to answer. Is a piece of software fixing your rent? Is it coordinating your landlord with every other landlord's price, without any of them ever picking up a phone? Because if the answer is yes, this isn't a pricing quirk. It's illegal price fixing at scale, hitting millions of renters, and so far, almost nobody's been held to account for it. And if the popular version overstates what's happening, you're aiming your anger at the wrong villain. That helps exactly nobody but the people actually setting the price. This is a live federal case right now, with landlord settlements already past $200 million, and it's still not resolved. Start with what looks damning, because a lot of it holds up. RealPage's pricing software, most landlords run a product called YieldStar, pulls in competitors' actual, non-public lease prices. Then it spits out a new recommended rent for almost every unit every single day. Think of it less like a calculator and more like a room where every landlord's private numbers get dumped on the same table. All of that happens before any of them set a price. Former employees say landlords take that number 9 times out of 10. That's not a suggestion box. That's a steering wheel with someone else's hands on it. The Justice Department and 10 state attorneys general clearly think so too. They sued RealPage and 6 of the country's biggest landlords, running more than 1.3 million apartments between them. All of them, prosecutors say, used shared software to fix rents instead of competing on price. That's not a niche case. That's a meaningful slice of the national rental market, all allegedly synced to the same engine. In one Seattle neighborhood, Belltown, the 10 property managers who controlled 70% of the apartments were all running the exact same software. Same inputs, same output, same rent, moving up and down the block with no meeting required. If you rented in Belltown, you weren't shopping 10 competitors. You were shopping one algorithm, wearing 10 different logos. I went and pulled RealPage's own old marketing pitch, the one promising landlords they could outperform the market by several points a year. Sit with that promise for a second. It only works if the software already knows what every other landlord is about to charge before they charge it. Otherwise, outperform the market is just a guess with good branding. That's not a hunch. That's the pitch, in writing, and you can go find it yourself. So on paper, this looks like a closed case. Shared private data, near universal adoption in some markets. A product name, YieldStar, that sounds like a cartel's internal code name. Except I found something buried in the government's own paperwork, in the case built specifically to prove landlords are just following orders. And it doesn't fit the tidy story at all. Turns out, the Justice Department's own complaint admits something the tidy story doesn't expect. It's the one meant to prove landlords are just following orders. And it says they only take its recommendation about half the time. Half the time. A landlord looks at the number YieldStar hands them and just doesn't use it, which is a strange detail for a story where the algorithm is supposedly running the whole show. If the machine were really in charge, you'd expect it to win more often than a coin flip. And it gets messier. A nearly identical lawsuit, same legal theory, a different industry, got thrown out of federal court. Las Vegas hotels used a shared pricing algorithm too, built by a company called Sendin. A Nevada judge ruled that using a common algorithm isn't automatically illegal collusion. Staggered adoption, public pricing data, hotels that kept full control over the sticker price. None of that, the judge said, adds up to a conspiracy. Same basic setup as the rent case. Opposite outcome. So I tried to answer the simplest question I could think of. How much is this actually costing me a month? Instead of one number, I got a number that swings by 7 times depending on who's doing the math. And this is where it starts to cost you. $25 from the most careful academic study out there. 15 years of real building-by-building rent data from a Wharton economist named Sophie Calder-Wang. $181 from a White House estimate the software company itself disputes, calling it riddled with flawed assumptions. 2 credible sources, 2 very different answers to what sounds like a simple question, and either way, you're the one paying it. And here's the detail almost nobody repeats. That same academic study found the software also cuts rents faster during downturns. A real harm and a real benefit come out of the same tool. The popular version of this story only ever mentions one of them. Leave that part out and you're not simplifying the story. You're just telling half of it. Whatever the exact number is, real money has already moved because of this, which means it's complicated isn't the same as nothing happened. Landlords have already agreed to pay out more than $200 million to settle renter lawsuits over this software. The company that built it hasn't paid a cent of that. So the real question stops being whether the AI is evil. It starts being who's actually on the hook when the algorithm's the one making the call. So is a piece of software actually fixing your rent? Here's the honest answer. This is real, prosecutable coordination. A federal judge in Tennessee said the most persuasive evidence against RealPage was simple. Landlords fed their own private, competitor-sensitive pricing into one shared system. He called it a melting pot. But it's not a rogue AI acting on its own initiative. It's decades-old statistical pricing software, the same category hotels and airlines have used for years. It only got marketed as AI in 2020, years before ChatGPT made that word mean something different to most of us. That rebrand let landlords quietly sync up without ever picking up a phone. Prosecutors are calling that collusion, executed through code instead of conversation. And so far, the company that built the tool has settled with the government for $0, and no admission it did anything wrong. The deal: a promise to stop using competitors' private lease data, and a monitor watching for up to 7 years. Here's the piece of evidence that settles it for me. At an industry conference, a RealPage vice president asked a colleague what role the software had played in a rent spike of 14.5%. He asked it on the record. The colleague, a RealPage executive named Andrew Bowen, didn't dodge it. "I think it's driving it, quite honestly," he said. As a property manager, very few of us would be willing to actually raise rents double digits within a single month by doing it manually. Even the company's own response is a tell. RealPage is currently suing the city of Berkeley over its ban on this software. Its argument? The ban illegally restricts RealPage's free speech to give landlords pricing advice. It's already working. Berkeley delayed enforcing its own ban by a year rather than fight the lawsuit through. That's not the posture of a company that thinks it did nothing wrong. That's the posture of a company buying time. I put that quote right next to the $25 number, and that's where this actually lands for me. Not a sci-fi AI cartel. An old spreadsheet with a new marketing label, doing exactly what its own people suspected it was doing. Just smaller, messier, and a lot less finished than the headline version. Here's what I want you to start watching for. AI getting used less as a technology claim and more as a liability shield. That's a fresh label slapped on old software so that when something goes wrong, the excuse becomes, the algorithm did it, not we chose this. You'll see this move again in other industries, wearing a different name. If you keep asking whether the algorithm is guilty, you let the actual decision makers disappear behind it. Those are the landlords who chose to use that number. Half the time, even when nothing forced them to. The software didn't sign a single lease. A person did, every time. If I were you, here's the one thing worth doing differently. Next time a company calls something AI-powered to explain away a decision that hurt you, ask how old the tool actually is. Ask who's still making the calls with it. The rebrand is usually doing more work than the machine. Go back to that rent renewal letter. The circled number I pictured a silent AI cartel setting all on its own. It's not that. It's a room full of landlords' private numbers, laundered through a spreadsheet that got a marketing rebrand in 2020. Somehow, that makes it both less like science fiction and more worth paying attention to. That's the memo. Read.